now we're going to get into the way people like me and Sage and Janice have been treated on campuses, have been treated by university students sent to protest them by their women's studies professors as part of their women's studies program. There's video footage. You don't need to shake your head. Just look it up on YouTube. Another way feminism protects its hegemony is through vilification of its critics, all in accordance with the tropes I've described. I know Sage could tell us a few things about that, and I'm sure he will, so I won't go into his case here. At the same time, it is appallingly easy to poison public sentiment toward an individual, especially a man who dares to challenge feminism. Earlier this year, Wall Street Journal columnist James Taranto came under heavy feminist fire for an article in which he asserted that when a man and a woman are both equally drunk, equally willingly, and both decide to have sex, there is no reason other than sexism to assume that the man is a perpetrator of rape and the woman his victim. Within 24 hours, a dozen or more articles were published in feminist and mainstream media calling for him to be fired. The National Organization for Women issued a press release demanding he be dismissed from the Wall Street Journal. Twitter exploded with angry tweets calling him a rape apologist, a bigot, a misogynist, and a troglodyte. They also said he had a little dick. Taranto is lucky enough to generate enough income for the journal to have kept his job, but it can't have been very pleasant for him. Not so lucky was Bill Frezza recently, who wrote an article for Forbes recommending fraternities not admit into their parties young women who've been pre-gaming, that is, for those of you who aren't in college at the moment, drinking in advance of a party, for safety concerns. His crime was that his primary concern was as someone advising fraternities, their safety, the men's safety. Not to protect the young women from rape, but more to protect the young men in the house from potential liability should anything happen to a drunk girl on their property. Oddly enough, most of the outrage from feminists online happened to be about things Frezza didn't even say. They just inferred that he meant them, while mostly ignoring the things that he did say. Within hours, Forbes had pulled the offending article and had fired Bill Frezza. Other men have had to step down from prominent positions after feminists took offense to their words or behavior. Larry Summers was forced to step down from his position as president of Harvard for the dire crime of saying that when you think about heredity alone, there are more male idiots than female idiots and more male geniuses than female geniuses. This was interpreted by many feminists as him asserting that men are smarter than women, though oddly enough, no one had much of a problem with his claim of male dominance in the idiot department. Justin Vikula, a prominent figure in the US skeptic community, voluntarily resigned his position as head of his chapter after falling afoul of feminists who campaigned to have him removed. His crime? Criticizing a feminist member of the community who was attempting to censor a free and open debate of certain issues. The common thread in all of these incidents has been a tendency by feminists to paint any and all criticism of feminism as potentially harmful to women. Taranto was not, according to them, raising a valid point about double standards. He was engaging in rape apology and posing a threat to all women everywhere. Summers was not positing a hypothesis as to why women may not achieve as often as men at the highest reaches of academic ability in math and physics. He was asserting that women are inferior and posing a threat to the advancement of women in academia. Society reacts the way it always does when it feels its women are endangered by words or actions of men, like the mobs of angry men who hanged countless black men in the US prior to our shift in attitudes about black people. Society acts to quash the perceived threat with little care for fact-finding or the importance of the blindness of justice. Think of the protests to this event organized by feminists here at KSU, not leaflets disputing the differences of opinion between their position and KSU men, not not a counter-argument, a list of facts and links, not a dialogue or even the argument that KSOM is unnecessary. It was an elaborate artistic protest about rape and rape victims, casting this event and KSOM as a potential threat to women. And who could blame them? Why give up on a strategy that has worked so well for so long, that has kept so many people terrified to speak up, lest they be branded with the scarlet M for misogynist? You bunch of misogynists. There are now, finally, some alternative voices on gender issues being heard, and one of the reasons for this is that the internet has many fewer gatekeepers than the mainstream media. Anyone can start a blog and put their opinion out there. Anyone can access a wide variety of research on things like domestic violence, sexual assault, educational attainment and outcomes, and other social problems we perceive as gendered, sometimes in the wrong direction. Anyone can leave a comment on a news piece challenging the assertions made therein and present a counter-argument with counter-evidence. Public opinion is beginning to shift, and it is actually starting with the speaking out of young, college-aged women. Young women who are saying over Twitter, over Facebook, this is why I am not a feminist. I am not a feminist because, and giving their reasons, right? And if feminism wants to have any credibility left by the end of this cultural dialogue, whatever we are allowed to have of a cultural dialogue between ourselves and feminism, if they want to have any credibility left, they're going to have to actually think about why so many people think feminism doesn't like men. Why could this be? How could this have happened? I mean, we only say nonstop that masculinity is toxic, that patriarchy, right? The mere fact that men are in charge creates an unjust society. This equates to men necessarily being unjust inherently, right? That if there's not 50-50 representation in the Senate, then some horrible, horrible oppression of women is taking place. But when there's 96% representation of men in workplace deaths, right, and 40% representation of men in post-secondary education, and there's 95% representation of men in the prison system, much of it due to bias, right? That's not oppression. Maybe it's oppression of women. Who knows? Anyone can get the information that I use. I don't have some golden ticket to some vault somewhere where this is all kept. Just like Jonathan said, the information's out there. There's just nobody in the mainstream who's interested in talking about it yet. But if feminism really wants to actually stay a movement and stay a thing, they are going to have to start actually considering some of these criticisms, rather than just trying to shout them down and punish people who bring them up. And I just want to say one last thing. I encourage everybody here who is a non-feminist, you don't have to be an anti-feminist like me. You can merely be a person with no affiliation whatsoever. But a crowd is going to eventually gather in front of that presidential palace. And I just want to let you know, dissenters aren't as easy to pick off when they're all standing together and when they outnumber their opponents. They're a lot harder to take out. So I just want to encourage people here who feel like there are problems in academia, problems in the government, problems in politics, problems in the media related to feminism and feminist ideology, to please don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. You don't have to be as brutal about it as I usually am. You know, you might want to ease into it a little bit, but definitely the fewer of us who keep their mouths shut, the fewer of us who are silent, the quicker that we can get a lot of these issues that Jonathan was talking about, a lot of the issues of laws